if you think you might have a problem with recasts, then you probably do. Tony brings up a great point, everyone. Call your sponsor before you buy the first recast. Thank you so much, Tony. Would anyone else like to share? Okay, John.
I'm John, and I bought a recast.
Hi, John.
Well, it all started when I came across a guy selling a colossal squig in a buy-sell trade group on Facebook. I don't buy recasts, and I don't condone buying recasts, but this deal was just too good to turn down. Well, kind of. Hey folks, what's up? Welcome to Earh0x Minis, and welcome to Squigday 2021. It's a big day. Be sure to check out all the content on all the platforms. Just search for Squigday 2021. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. I'm just going to really skip through the painting part, because that's not really the point of this video. The purpose of this video is to kind of start a dialogue between you and I, between people in your hobby group, or even just with yourself. And as I'm sure you can guess, this conversation is going to be about recasts. So first, what is a recast? If you don't know what a recast is, it is when somebody takes a model, makes a mold of that model, and then simply casts their own copies of this model, oftentimes to sell. For the sake of this conversation, we're going to break things down into two categories. One we'll call the arguably justifiable argument. The other we'll call the argument against. There are some instances where one can argue that buying a recast is not necessarily a bad thing. One of them being my case with this squig. I bought this actually third hand, so I was not giving recasters any money. I was just buying it from someone who bought it from a job lot, and they didn't want it. I don't have any problems with people buying recasts second or third hand. Another argument people often make is that models are either out of print or they were in a limited run sale. Now this one is, I can see the point here. You want the model, it's not made anymore. You wanted the model, but you weren't able to buy it because it was limited. That makes sense. On the other hand, for out-of-print models, buying recasts and people making recasts of these models really de-incentivizes companies from really making new copies of that model in the future. If these manufacturers don't see a demand for these products because people aren't posting and bugging the companies to make more, then they don't really think anybody would want to see these old models remade. The next one I want to talk about is recasting for personal use. While it's still technically not legal, I can understand this justification for doing it. If you want to have multiple copies of one model for whatever reason, you know, I get it. Another justification people give for this is wanting to try the hobby. Now, this one I kind of don't get, because generally the models being recasted are big models, expensive models, maybe some smaller out-of-print older models, but usually what you see is the big expensive models like from Forge World and stuff like that. And this one I kind of don't really understand, because if you're trying your hand at the hobby, generally you wouldn't want some big giant fancy model. You'd want to start out with something much simpler. And if price is the argument you're giving, I mean, you can buy Reaper models for a couple bucks, and they're a lot easier to paint, they're more available, and they're generally cheaper than a lot of the recast stuff anyway. Now we're going to move on to the arguments against recasting. And the first one and most obvious one is that it's illegal. You're stealing IP and making money off it. And when you buy these recasted models, you're just encouraging people to do that even more. Second on the list here is price. A lot of people see these big models and they want them, but they're very expensive. They're very expensive for a reason. It takes many hours to make, you know, like a Forge World model. It takes a lot of people, it takes a lot of resources, and it takes a lot of money. So that's why they're expensive. You can get these recast models super cheap from recasters because they have almost no overhead. The materials are really cheap, and it's relatively quick and easy to do. Now some people say, well, this model's too expensive, I wasn't gonna buy it anyway, so they're not really losing out on my money. Now, well, I've used this excuse many times in the past. I can't say I've never downloaded illegal software. One of the big differences is in the size of these companies. Is Adobe gonna miss my one-time purchase of Photoshop? Probably not. And while Games Workshop certainly isn't a small company, it's certainly not Adobe either. And these missed sales, especially for smaller companies, do add up. Another big difference is if you download an illegal piece of software or music or movies, generally the people who made those aren't making money off it. They're doing it for the lulz, or they're doing it just to see if they can crack the software or whatever. In the case of recasting, you're actually giving money to somebody that could have gone to the actual companies that make the models that you really like. And the last one we're going to talk about is the quality of these models. I'm not saying every single one sucks, but a large majority of what I've seen have been really poor quality, full of bubbles, full of flash, bad detail, all kinds of stuff. Which brings us to my recast. I didn't get this model finished in time for Squigday, unfortunately. And that's because, we'll switch the video back here now, of all the problems that I had with preparing this model just to get it painted. I spent almost as much time repairing and preparing this model as I did painting it. If I didn't have to do all these steps, I would have this model finished. This model had so many problems with putting the pieces together, in addition to having giant casting blocks in really bad spots. This resulted in me having to cut and file big parts of the model away and resculpt them using polymer putty. The left side of the jaw piece was oversized by almost 4 millimeters, which I had to cut away just to get the edges of the mouth to line up. I then had to resculpt all of the skin folds using the epoxy putty. When the legs were finally attached, they had gaps of up to about 2 millimeters on both sides. And again, those had to be filled and those details recreated. So obviously, whether or not you buy a recast is ultimately up to you. I just hope you got some things to think about from this and to talk about. Let me know what you think in the comments below. So thanks for checking out my Squigday video. Make sure to look at all the Squigday content on every platform and like and subscribe to all of these people. They're doing some great work. I will have a link to a playlist down below containing all of the Brain Trust members' videos as they are posted, so check that out. Hope you stay safe, stay sane. Hope you have a lot of things to paint, a lot of time to paint it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.